Kyle Larson sweeps the weekend at Watkins Glen, but to win the Cup race, he had to rough up his teammate Chase Elliott. Was his move fair, foul, or somewhere in between? How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. We're talking all things Watkins Glen. What a day. All the international drivers in the field, of course, all eyes on Kimi Raikkonen, the former F1 champion, who put forth a pretty good showing until he got caught up in a restart wreck. But 7 different countries represented on track out at Watkins Glen, a sellout crowd. Second straight year they've sold out the campgrounds as well. Mix in some wet conditions, some rain racing in the first half, and this race had a lot to get the average race fan excited. Semi-final regular season event, all eyes on the playoff picture. Unfortunately, both Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr. were total no-shows today. I don't think either cracked the top 10 for more than maybe a lap. We will look at the playoff grid in just a few moments. The race came down to 2 teammates, the 2 most recent Cup Series champions, 2 of the top championship contenders this year, in my opinion. And it ended with some hurt feelings. Now, we'll talk about some of the top finishers. I mentioned we'll talk about the playoffs in a moment. We'll put this race on the groovy gauge at the end, but I want to begin with the final restart. Kyle Larson on the inside, restarting second. Chase Elliott, the control car, the race leader, choosing the outside lane, the left lane in this case. Back up just a second. The previous couple of runs, Chase Elliott had established himself as the class of the field. He'd driven away from Kyle Larson after green flag pit stops, after the caution for Joey Hand and the restart after that. He drove away from Larson then. Then we get Loris Hezemans spinning, getting stuck, another caution. Everyone in the field knows the 9 car is the team to beat. They are the best. Now let's look at this final restart. Chase Elliott fires off first as he's supposed to, but AJ Allmendinger in third gives Kyle Larson a great push, allows Larson to be even with Elliott door to door as they enter the braking zone going into turn 1. Chase Elliott hits his mark, brakes where he's supposed to, but Kyle Larson chose to drive it in deeper. Locked the right front tire up, washed up into Chase Elliott. The 2 made contact, forced Elliott wide, an extra groove. Kyle Larson just bullied his way into the lead position. Chase Elliott lost second, then down the backstretch through the S's, lost a couple more spots, fell back to almost 6th place. Drove his way back up to 4th, but Kyle Larson was able to hold off the rest of the field from there. Once he got clear of Elliott, no one was catching him. Allmendinger put forth a valiant effort, but just didn't have the same car underneath him. Kyle Larson gets his 2nd win of the season. He hadn't won a race since Auto Club back in like February. Now, speaking of that race, fans will likely identify some similarities between Auto Club and Watkins Glen. Not only did Kyle Larson win both of those races, obviously, but both wins came after late race contact with Chase Elliott, Larson's teammate. At Auto Club, you'll recall Elliott had a huge run here down the front stretch, went high. Larson came up and ended up blocking Elliott into the fence. Larson said he didn't know Elliott was out there. Larson's spotter ultimately took the blame for that one, but this one today was all in Larson's hands. Larson made the conscious decision to drive in deep and use his teammate up, make a little contact, rub into his door just a bit, and take the position by force. 2 wins for Larson this year, both after contact with Chase Elliott. So was this move today fair? It depends on who you ask. Look, Larson said in his post-race interview that he doesn't feel good about it, but he also said Chase Elliott, when he picked the left lane, the outside lane, he should have been aware of the risk. Here's the way I see it. Kyle Larson ran a great race, but Chase Elliott ran a near perfect race. The only mistake Chase Elliott made all day long was assuming his teammate would maintain control of his vehicle going into turn 1. That's it. You know, the restart previously, Elliott chose the outside, same thing, Larson chose the inside, and they didn't make contact, but this final restart, Larson decided to take a swing at him. So the only mistake Elliott made all day was thinking he could count on his teammate to race him cleanly. See, when I say it like that, it kind of sounds like a cheap shot. Larson couldn't pass Chase Elliott cleanly, he couldn't run him down on the long run or the short run, so he had to door him when he got the chance. Look, it wasn't the most egregious late race contact we've seen this year, but Chase Elliott has every right to be frustrated. That's twice this year Kyle Larson has made contact with him, costing Elliott a potential win. They're teammates, so of course these things are handled a little differently, but you can already sense a rivalry brewing within Hendrick Motorsports. Chase Elliott put on a brave face, a very sponsor-friendly, politically correct face for TV when he, kind of through gritted teeth just congratulated Larson and all of Hendrick Motorsports. But you can tell behind his words, Chase Elliott is furious. He is fed up with the way Kyle Larson has raced him at times this year. They'll probably talk about it during their meetings this week. We'll see if this ever translates into action on the racetrack going into the playoffs. You know Rick Hendrick and Jeff Gordon want to get this settled down as soon as humanly possible. They run a tight ship. Both are championship contenders. They don't want this leaking in, seeping into the playoffs late in the season. But Chase Elliott is growing ever more frustrated with how Kyle Larson is racing him, and I can't say I blame him. Larson gets 5 more playoff points, very important with the playoffs right around the corner. As he said in his post-race interview, he did what he had to do. Boy, have we heard that line a million times this year. Let's look at some of the top finishers. AJ Allmendinger finishes second. You always know he's going to be a threat late in these road course races. His first NASCAR Cup Series win actually came at Watkins Glen back in 2014, right? So no surprise he's in the top 5. Daniel Suarez, quiet day, but he sneaks into the top 5. He ran top 10, I know, most of this race, just didn't get a lot of screen time. Michael McDowell, want to give him a lot of credit. He had a top 5 car today, like truly, on speed. In the rain, he had a top 2 car, went up and passed Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson for the race lead in the opening laps, led for a while. Pretty great to see. A guy who needs to win to make the playoffs, but has had some fantastic runs this year. This has been the best year of McDowell's Cup Series career by far. Today was just another chapter in that book. Tyler Reddick bounced back from an early spin to finish inside the top 10. Toyota, once again, really a no-show. They've struggled at the road courses this year. A couple guys like Kyle Busch was up in the top 10 late until he spun himself out. Christopher Bell was in the top 10 late. He finished there. But yeah, besides Bell there, the next best finishing Toyota is Denny Hamlin in 20th. Chris Buescher, a top 10. Eric Jones, a top 10. Don't always think about him being a great road course racer, but he's just overachieved in that car pretty much all year. Today was no different. Cole Custer, solid 11th. Kevin Harvick couldn't go 3 in a row, but he gets a solid top 15 finish, hung around. Those are your top finishers right there. A lot of people were talking about Kimi Raikkonen coming into this race. The former Formula One champion making his NASCAR Cup Series debut. Also the debut for Trackhouse's Project 91 car. This was its only expected race this year, but team owner Justin Marks said that next year they could run a good handful of races with that 91, bring in superstars from other forms of motorsports for select races. It's a really cool idea. It's really great, and Kimi Raikkonen was an awesome ambassador to take, the first stab at it. He impressed. I don't think he qualified that well, like 27th, but first time in a NASCAR Cup Series car, first time in any sort of stock car in like 10 or 12 years. Not bad. Quickly worked his way up into the top 20 when it was wet, and then later running sort of a slightly different strategy, but still showing legit speed, was racing around 8th, 9th, 10th place, racing with legit drivers, like Chase Elliott at one point, like Eric Jones. He was out there racing. Kimi Raikkonen was not riding around, and if he doesn't get caught up in a wreck at the beginning of stage 3, I think Raikkonen had a shot at a top 15 finish today. I'm not going to go any further than that, but I think a top 15 was certainly in play. And that's impressive. That's very, very impressive. Now, the wreck he was caught up in, unfortunately, was started by fellow Trackhouse teammate Ross Chastain when he overcooked it through the bus stop and drove into the side of Austin Dillon on a restart. Stacked everybody up. Raikkonen didn't know where to go. So I hope he comes back to NASCAR someday. I'm not super familiar, obviously, with him. I don't follow Formula One super duper closely, but I know he has a reputation for being very stoic, for not showing a lot of emotion, a man of very few words. Comments I saw all weekend, people were shocked by how much he was smiling, how outgoing he seemed to be with the media and with other competitors. So seemed to have a good time. Hopefully other international stars see that and want to come take a stab at NASCAR someday, and hopefully Raikkonen considers a return in the not so distant future. While I'm talking about road course ringers, so to speak, Joey Hand in that Rick Ware number 15 legitimately had top 10 pace today and spent a good amount of this event in and around the top 5. Unfortunately, he wiped out late in this race, brought out the second to last caution, just slid through turn 1, backed it into the outside tire barrier. NASCAR maybe a little quick on the caution on the trigger there. Their excuse likely was they needed to check on the tire barrier because after Hand hit it, it caved in a bit. Safety first, got to go check on it. So maybe not the wrong call, but it was a little surprising in the moment to see them throw that caution. At the time, Elliott and Larson were like 10 seconds ahead of third place. So, NASCAR wanted to keep things a little more interesting. The Joey Hand accident gave them the excuse to stack things up. I'm not criticizing officials for that one. I think it was the right call. I actually have some good things to say about NASCAR's officiating. We'll get to that towards the end of the episode. I know, right? Something positive for a change. Stay tuned. One final shout out. I'm just throwing them out everywhere here, but Todd Gilliland as well. He got credited with like a 38th place finish today after they broke something, was an axle, broke an axle while leading the race. Maybe a little too hard on some of the curbs, but before he broke that piece, he was also a legitimate top 5, maybe top 10 threat, was leading some laps on a slightly varied strategy. He was impressive. And go back to Indianapolis a couple weeks ago, he finished top 5, and yeah, that race was crazy at the end, but he ran top 10 for most of that race. So Todd Gilliland, the rookie, really showing out at some road courses this summer. Just want to give him credit for that. Real quick, let's look at the playoff grid. One playoff race to go. Daytona next Saturday night. Kyle Larson winning doesn't really shake things up down here. It moves him up a little bit higher up on the playoff grid. But down here, it's still Ryan Blaney holding an edge over Martin Truex Jr. Like I said earlier, neither of these drivers were a factor today. They both finished outside the top 20, and quite frankly, they ran around there all day long. Just been a weird year for Martin Truex Jr. especially. He used to be the guy. Like, Chase Elliott was the man, but Truex was the guy next to him at Watkins Glen for years. Not today. Not even close. They finished, I think, 23rd and 24th, so Truex actually gained 1 point on Ryan Blaney today. Good for him. Really surprised neither one of them showed any speed today. Daytona next week, anything can happen. I don't think either of them is safe. McDowell's been so fast lately. Chris Buescher's been so fast lately. Bubba Wallace is a tremendous super speedway racer. Both Blaney and Truex have to be sweating bullets all week long. One note before we move on though, Chase Elliott at the end of I think stage 1 or stage 2 locked up the regular season championship. So he will get 15 playoff points come Darlington. Those will carry throughout the round. So congrats to Chase Elliott. I've always said that NASCAR needs to do a better job hyping up the regular season champion. I know they give him a trophy and everything, but you make it a bigger deal. The extra points are nice and everything, but that's an honor that should be heralded very highly. And so hopefully people do. Chase Elliott, congrats on winning the regular season championship. He won it a week early, and I can't remember who tweeted it, but I saw a tweet today that said, oh, Chase Elliott locked up the regular season championship a week early. That's proof we need playoffs for the regular season. That made me laugh. Anyway, that was a look at the playoff grid. Again, congratulations to Chase Elliott. Didn't win the race, unfortunately for him, but did lock up the regular season championship, and effectively locks up, I believe, the most playoff points of anyone going into the playoffs. So that's pretty good. Before we get to the groovy gauge, I want to talk about the rain delay, or the lightning/rain delay. 2 separate points here. First, this is now 4 of NBC/USA's first 9 races this year that have faced some sort of weather delay. 4 out of 9. I know the ratings for USA and NBC have been up so far this year, so I guess the weather delays haven't hurt them too bad, but 4 out of 9 is a frustrating ratio. And I know everyone will say hindsight is 20/20, but one thing we don't need hindsight to see is that in the summer, especially when we're talking about the East Coast or the Southeast, late afternoons are when rain is most likely to come. That's just fact. Everyone knows that. All these 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m. Eastern starts. Look, Nashville a few weeks back was like a 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern start, like right in that window when rain is most likely. You don't need hindsight to see that. That's just a known trend. It would be nice if during these summer months at least there was a compromise. I'm not a fan of noon starts. To me, that is too early. You do have to consider the West Coast viewer to an extent. I just ask for maybe 1 or 1:30 Eastern starts, especially for some of these tracks that don't have lights, especially for these summer months. It's something I hope NBC and /USA consider next year, because 4 weather delays in the first 9 weeks, look, some of it's unavoidable. We don't know exactly where and when it's going to rain, but science does tell us that the warm late afternoons in the summer are when it's most likely. So hopefully next year's schedule can adjust slightly. I don't have any faith or confidence that it will. I just want to throw that out there. Now my second point, and this is where I want to commend NASCAR and their officiating, I think they handled the lightning/rain weather delays perfectly today. First off, the lightning delays, if there's lightning within an 8-mile radius, you have to go on hold for 30 minutes. I'm pretty sure that's just like a law they have to follow. I don't think that's strictly a NASCAR policy. I may be wrong about that, but either way, it's their policy. It's for safety of fans and competitors. I think that's fair. They handled that obviously as they're supposed to. But once the lightning hold was lifted and the rain was still coming down, I think NASCAR made the right call not going green with standing water, heavy rain, thick, dense puddles in the racing groove. I think NASCAR was right to extend the red flag. A lot of folks were upset. What's the point of rain tires if we're not going to race through these conditions? But I think NASCAR got it right. Look, the point of these wet rain tires is to allow NASCAR to race in wet conditions, not soaked conditions. Go back to Coda last year. Those were soaked conditions. The rain was steady throughout. The track was getting wetter and wetter. Puddles all over the racetrack. Visibility, a major issue. It became not only a safety issue, if you recall the huge crash between Cole Custer and Martin Truex Jr., it also became a quality of racing issue. You had guys spinning left and right. People couldn't see. These are the best stock car drivers in the world. That doesn't mean they can see through sheets of water. I think NASCAR was right to delay the start of this race until they could dry some of the track, get it down to like damp/wet conditions, not soaked conditions. I know a lot of fans, including myself, were frustrated that we had to sit for an extra 30 minutes until they could go green, but I think it was the right call. So I want to applaud NASCAR for not getting jumpy, not getting antsy, not getting impatient, and turning them loose in awful conditions. I think they played it smart, and I think they played it correctly. So I do want to give NASCAR officials credit for that decision. All right, on that note, let's talk about the race itself. Let's put this thing on the groovy gauge. Was Watkins Glen a good race? I think so. I think it was fantastic. You know, the race was in danger of ending anticlimactically with, Elliott, a 2-second lead over Larson, an 8-second lead over Michael McDowell. And if the race had ended like that, the most deserving driver would have won. We did get a great show in the first half, first 2/3. I wouldn't have hated on it too bad, but I probably would have given it a slightly lower score than I'm going to. The final couple restarts were very exciting. They weren't like Indianapolis a couple weeks ago where people were just taking cheap shots left and right. It was chaos, it was pandemonium, deserving drivers were getting wrecked by no fault of their own. It wasn't like that. Yes, I think Larson's over-aggressive move on Chase Elliott was maybe a bit of a cheap shot. Elliott was clearly the more deserving driver all day long. Larson's only chance was to hit him. I don't love that, but I do love the drama and the storylines and the debates that it created. So I'm gonna give this race an 85% on the groovy gauge. That first stage with some drivers staying out on the wet tires for a long time, others pitting for slicks early on, super duper interesting. Guys blending off of pit road onto the racing groove in front of the lead pack, creating a lot of stack ups. It was great, edge of your seat stuff. Stage 2 had some great moments as well. Early stage 3, some fantastic racing. A lot of unique characters in the field. Raikkonen was competitive until he got wrecked. McDowell, very competitive. Joey Hand, very competitive. At the end of the day, it was the two favorites, Larson and Elliott, going mano a mano pretty much. But this race had a lot to keep you invested, I think, if you're a hardcore fan or if you're kind of a casual fan. So I'm going to give it an 85%, a really solid, I'd say a really good Watkins Glen NASCAR Cup Series race, in my opinion. Share your thoughts down in the comments section below. What'd you think of the racing today? But more importantly, what'd you think of that last restart move, Larson on Chase Elliott? Was it fair? Was it a little over the line? Somewhere in between? Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. But that's gonna do it. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We talk NASCAR news all throughout the week, and then we react to races on the weekends, as we're doing right here, right now. And as always, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters for going above and beyond to support the channel, to keep it growing. I truly appreciate you guys. We'll be back this week. Lots to cover going into Daytona, the regular season finale. Thanks for watching, y'all. Have a great rest of your weekend.